Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Swifties. Welcome to another episode of Winging It F1 podcast. We did think there'd be a bit of a blank space at the start of this podcast, at the start of this week, to talk about F1. We've had a few weeks off, but no, because the biggest story in the history of Formula One has broken. The anti-hero of Formula One himself, Fernando Alonso, is now dating our favorite pop star, Taylor Swift. Obviously, this is the big story of the podcast. We're not going to talk about whoever James Allison is. We're not going to talk about some sketchy sprint format for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix that's coming up this week. You know, the fourth Grand Prix of the season that Red Bull probably will win. We're not going to talk about that because this is prime news for a reputable every reputable outfit of news ever, and that's basically us, I think. I'm Freddie. I have seen Taylor Swift. And I'm with Nigel and Adam, who haven't. Nigel's in Berlin. He's in a hotel room. Is he going to be visited by Taylor Swift there? Probably not. Adam's in Sheffield. Kind of weirdly feel like that's more likely to have a Taylor Swift visit. I don't know why. I know Berlin's the capital of Germany. But anyway, how are you guys? Nigel, why are you in Berlin?
Because I'm meant to be back in the UK, but there's an airport strike. So that's why I'm still in Berlin right now, to answer your question. But I'm also here for the Formula E. But the reason I'm in Berlin now is because of the strike, which isn't my fault, obviously.
I don't blame you for any strike, Nigel. Adam, how are you? How is the last throes of your university career?
It's last minute, as predictably.
Surprise.
So,
oh
yeah,
no.
Yeah, entirely predictably, it is very last minute, but there's something quite not calming, but focusing about when you just know it's like 6 weeks left and you can see the finish line, and it's just that, that's where it is.
Do you want to appeal for interviewees on the podcast?
No, I'm all good there. If anyone wants
good.
If anyone wants to write an article about for a football fanzine, though, then DM us at Twitter at Adam Dickinson01, which now doesn't have a blue tick, so you won't know. Well, I mean, you will if you type that in, but if you just type in Adam Dickinson for the blue tick, you wouldn't have known. It's me because I don't have one anymore. So
you never had one in the first place, mate.
No, that was me. I was the one who didn't.
Yeah.
WTF1 finally has one though. When it was able to verify places, they didn't get one. Then they got given one for free afterwards anyway, after the cull. So who knows what's going on with Twitter?
I've not been offered one. Although maybe by the next podcast I will have, in which case.
You can just pay, if you're an organisation, £1,140. Then you can pretend to be an organisation. You can get verified. It's not like that's happened today, the day we record. Oh wait, it has. Anyway, we use Twitter to publicize this podcast, so let's move on. Let's not upset the Elon heads who are probably trying to dig up every bit of dirt on our lives now. I don't really know.
How many Elon heads listen to our podcast, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I reckon there's a location on
12. I reckon 12.
12? 12. If you are one of these 12 Elon heads, then great, good for you.
Well, because he's Martian, isn't he? I know people think he's from South Africa, but he's from Mars, but that doesn't show up on ACAST locations either.
No,
so we can't even tell that.
Right, but I don't think he listens in Mars.
That's also very true.
He's probably got a US phone contract, so it probably registers as a US download. But anyway, Elon Musk, hey, how's it going, man? Chill a bit, all right? Anyway, that's that internet problem dealt with. Let's move on to probably a much bigger deal, which is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. We're not going to spend the whole time talking about Taylor Swift as much as we'd like to. We're not going to hit till midnight. I hate myself.
Gonna be bad blood if this continues.
Whoa!
And just in case that wasn't picked up, there's going to be bad blood if this continues.
Yes, it was picked up.
Like on there's a Catster's Countdown episode where James Acaster and Lee Mack are just repeating each other's jokes so that one of them makes it into the edit, and then they all make it into the edit. It's a Christmas episode, actually, so you can't watch it for...
episode, wasn't it? Where James Acaster and Lee Mack just repeated all of each other's jokes to see if they'd make it into the edit, and they all made it into the edit. The Christmas film. Sorry, that was on a plate.
You need to calm down.
The worst thing I've ever done. Anyway, Nigel, you have strong opinions about the new sprint format. Yes, there's a new sprint format in Formula One. Just when you thought you'd forgotten about it, it's back, but you haven't remembered it correctly because it's different. So what's going on? Nigel, give us the lowdown, give us the rundown, give us the down.
I'll give you the down now. So basically, the 10 teams have agreed to have a new format. So there'll be FP1 on Friday, qualifying for the main race on Friday, and then Saturday is basically just for the sprint. So there'll be a separate qualifying for the sprint and the sprint itself. But that qualifying on the Saturday, the second one, is set to be a bit different. Now, it's not clear yet what the details are. There might be a shootout in Q3. The session times should be a bit shorter. So there's small tweaks like that, but then the actual sprint itself is still 100 kilometers, no pit stops, 8 points, down to 1 point for 8th. And then you got the main race on Sunday. So those are the main things that are changing. It's basically become a standalone event, the sprint, which is what a lot of people wanted, I think.
Yeah.
And the second qualifying session has been introduced. My opinion, look, I've never been a fan of these sprint races.
If you're not, you could have fooled us.
Whoa.
Go back to November. We re-uploaded something between just me and Adam for 20 minutes debating about it. It's brilliant. But yeah, my opinion from that hasn't really changed. Is this format a bit better?
Well invited.
Potentially a bit better. But I just don't know. Having 2 qualifiers, having kind of 2 of those high points, I don't know.
What would make you happy? What about this change now is so annoying anyway?
I don't think it's annoying. It's just
because, like you say, this is what they're doing is they're separating the sprint from the Grand Prix. So the Grand Prix has its sanctity that for some reason people feel like it deserves, and then it's just adding an extra bit of F1. It's adding an extra competition to it. I'm okay with that.
For me, it's very much...
No, you must only have one race. It must be on a Sunday, and Friday must be boring.
No, it's not boring because
Friday must have long run.
What's wrong with a 2-day weekend? What's wrong with that?
Nothing. But what's wrong with having a 3-day weekend where 2 days are more interesting?
Because for me, qualifying should be about 1 lap pace on a Saturday.
And it's not. But qualifying still is about 1 lap pace. It's just on a Friday and on a Saturday.
But then you got a sprint as well, and I'm not a fan of the sprint.
But the sprint now is just a race.
But it's the boring part of a race. It's the first stint of a race. There's no pit stop. F1 to be excited, you need a pit stop. The sprint doesn't have a pit stop, and so everyone's
cautious.
That's a
bold statement. I think just so make the sprint 15 laps longer.
Yeah. That would improve it. Yeah, that would improve it. Yeah.
Cool. That didn't seem like that was your original complaint.
What was my original complaint?
Nigel didn't know his original complaint.
That it was happening.
Yeah. Even before these new changes, I'm just not a fan of these sprints. I mean, MotoGP have got them now, haven't they, and stuff like that, and it's been kind of mixed reception there, I think. So it does seem to be.
Well, MotoGP have done it differently. They've done it every race weekend.
Yeah.
And I feel like it sort of looks at sort of what other really quite successful bike championships have done. Look at British Superbikes, look at World Superbikes, which actively race in sort of 3 races over the weekend with more of a sprint format across the board. And they've been booming recently in recent years. So from a bike perspective, they've gone the way of sort of, to be honest, bike competition. And I think that can translate to F1 pretty well. And I think they backed themselves into a corner by doing the qualifying for some reason on, having the 2 qualifying sessions is a bit weird. Like, you do kind of feel like, why do you have to sort of have that sort of weird parachuted day in between with the Saturday? It just feels like they've just, that does feel a bit on the fly. I'll agree with that. But I like the idea of having 2 races, and I like the idea of that being, on a Saturday and on on a Sunday on one weekend. You see that on loads of stuff. I don't think it really matters.
But you don't
with-
see a sprint. You just see two proper full races like
Yeah,
Formula
why not do that? And you can have 2 morning qualifying sessions and then 2 afternoon races, and
Yeah, I'd take that.
practice on a Friday.
I would take that. 2 qualifying sessions, then 2 races.
Yeah,
Saturday. So I'd love that.
there is every chance that, I mean, because naturally Formula One by its own just existence is that has much fewer variables than every other category in motorsport, like an IndyCar, like a Formula E, hell, even like MotoGP, where like even if you have the same thing on the same day, it's more likely in F1 to be exactly the same than in a different category. But they gave that a go in 2020. You looked at both Silverstone races that year, the British Grand Prix and the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. They just did different tire compounds and completely changed the face of the race. So I feel like they could just do something like that on 2 weekends. You can have a practice session, 2 practice sessions on Friday, one with one set of tires, one with another set of tires. You have an hour and two hour and a half practice sessions there, and then qualifying race, just deal with it after that. I quite like that.
I like that as well. I can agree with you on that. Adam, what are your thoughts though? You've not said what you think.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've only got one practice session, and then they're just into everything for the rest of the weekend. So it would even be even harder to be even harder to be ready for it for the whole weekend. But I think it's a very much wait and see for me. Like I think the worry is that the sprint race could just be dull and could just be a procession. Like, it's Baku. Baku can go kind of one of 2 ways, really. But I think in general, like what's most important for the sprint weekend is what is the tracks they pick to do them at, really. Like Interlagos has delivered some great action on the 2 sprint races they've had. I'm not as optimistic for Spa because it's not been great. We've not had a good Belgian Grand Prix in ages, and I think it's kind of one to wait and see how it turns out, and I'm not going to kind of make too many judgments on it before we've seen it in action.
And equally, we shouldn't judge it on just one race. So if it is really good, we shouldn't judge it on that. If it's really bad, we shouldn't judge it on that. It's just, for me, sprint as a whole, with this format, with the format we've had over the last couple of years, not for me.
It does bring me back to my kind of original opinion on criticism of sprints, which is, like you say, it's the first stint of a Grand Prix. But I think saying that F1 needs a pit stop to be exciting is a bit of a get out of jail free card for the fact that F1's on track product just isn't exciting then. And I think there's a bigger argument to be made that a sprint isn't exciting if there isn't a pit stop. Well, no, Formula One on track then just isn't exciting. So I think it's a bigger problem with that kind of thing. And there was then that was my main thought process through 2021, and then you got the 2022 regulations, which didn't make the biggest dent, did make it better, and I think definitely really helped in making the Interlagos sprint and the Imola sprint that year, 2 out of the 3 sprints, really quite interesting races. So I think based on that subset, it kind of lends itself to this format a bit more anyway.
I mean, that is something I was going to pick up on. Is I'll be interested to see, and again, like we can't really tell this off one race, but by and large, the majority of Grand Prix that have had a sprint race preceding them have been entertaining. So it's, whether that is because it's had the sprint before it or whether it's just kind of, a coincidence, then, there's still that debate going on, but it's whether uncoupling it from the Grand Prix altogether. And again, like, we can only see this over like 5 to 10 events, but whether that does make it less entertaining or whether it doesn't have any impact at all, or whether it was just a coincidence. But that is something that could be, I'd be interested to see whether that does have an impact or looks like it has an impact this weekend.
I still think it's a crime that they didn't do the first race of the 2022 regulations as a sprint weekend in Bahrain. I still think that would have been the best usage of a sprint ever. Just one practice session, just new cars, go for it.
I don't know. I don't know if it would have made much difference. Ultimately, if the fastest car starts on pole and is leading after lap 1, they're going to win the sprint race.
So why blame the format?
Because there's then no point to do qualifying in the race.
No point to do any of it if the fastest car's going to start on pole. Well, yeah, exactly. It's a never-ending spiral. All of these things can be countered with something equally as preposterous. Um, it's all a bit kind of. At the end of the day, I think me and Adam sort of sit in the same kind of regard of, you know what? I mean, if we were free all weekend, it would be great. But a practice session can be dull. And what they've done with the sprint weekend is they've gone, oh yeah, this practice session on the Saturday morning was redundant. We just wanted to have a session. Why not? Let's just do something a little bit more different and give it a go. I think the premature lead up to these changes being so last minute to the weekend, who knows? Maybe we'll have more changes throughout the year as sprint races go on. We've got 6 this week, this season. I wouldn't be against random things being trialed across at wherever the other ones are. I think Austria, Qatar, USA, Interlagos, and somewhere else. Spa.
Doesn't that take away a bit from the integrity of the championship if you just throw random things in here and there, whatever?
It depends how they are, in my opinion. If it's thrown in where it's just like something ridiculous, like that completely pivots the way an order of a race is. I mean, at the end of the day, I think a sprint race doesn't alter a competitive order in a Grand Prix at all, for my opinion. So I think if it is just a case of extending and making it a longer race, or if it is just a case of just sacking it off and doing like stages and things like that. So like at this stage in the race, if you're at this position, or if this, I don't know if there's an element of doing it like that. I know stages have been profoundly unpopular in NASCAR, so that's probably not the route to go down, and I would recommend not to. But I think there are different routes you can go down that keep the so-called integrity. Because yeah, I do agree that mid-season changes can be a cluster. Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because I think they are trying to figure out what works, and you can't really trial that. Like, you can only do it at Grand Prix weekend, so it's quite a difficult one in terms of, you know, now they have this idea and they're running with this idea for better or worse. Then, you know, they are trying to make changes. They are trying to act on fan feedback, and they are trying to, you know, see if they can mix it up and see if there's a way to do that. But, you know, it's then like, you know, you don't have a controlled environment. You do just have, you know, the Grand Prix, the World Championship. So I think ultimately it will be a good thing if they settle on a format. But until that point, then I don't, you know, unless it's like we're still talking about this in 10 years and they're still like doing different formats every week, trying to see what works. But, you know, if it does take them a few years to iron out the best way of doing for it, of doing these sprint races, then I don't really mind that.
I should say as well, the World Motorsport Council had to ratify this on Wednesday, but they should, because David 99% of the time they do.
Okay.
But again, on the second, or for the sprint qualifying, we're not entirely sure what that'll be. But if they do a 1 lap shootout in Q3, I think that will be one of the massive positives, because I've always thought Q3, maybe not all the time, but sometimes at the big events, do a 1 lap shootout where the cars go out one by one, because then if the best driver, so in this case Verstappen with the best team and best car, if he makes a mistake, then he'll naturally be 8th, 9th, 10th. Whereas now you get 2 runs in Q3, that kind of thing. So
Super Pole.
Yeah, a Super Pole, yeah, and other series do it as well. So I'm a massive fan of a Q3 1 lap shootout. So that's a big positive.
I do really like the drama of qualifying, where if it is competitive, then it can change, you know, like 3 times in 20 seconds, or, you know, like there's that ultimate drama. It all comes down, and it doesn't always happen. But I think, yeah, that's just like I really, really like that. And I think that's probably, you know, a more consistent, or maybe not this season with Red Bull being where they are, but when things have been competitive, then it's just like, you know, consistent way of producing drama is the knowledge that things could change, you know, or all in the space of a second at the end. And then, you know, it can flip flop, as I say, like 3 times in the space of, you know, less than a minute to at the end of a session. So I do really like that. But
there's room for both, in my opinion.
Yeah, have both. I would have both.
Yeah. I think, no one's saying, I think, we're all agreed that and aligned that you can have situations where you've got this car in sector 1, this car in sector 2, this car in sector 3, and they're all blasting the timing sheet. But you can also have it where each driver's then individual lap is analyzed in such a way as it's live and things like that. And you can see, the sort of, I think there's a similar kind of level of shock when a driver that looks like they're going to get pole then makes a massive mistake or something like that. And I think there's always such a pressure on a final qualifying lap. But I think, it's only natural that when you go out on your warm-up lap that you're aware that every camera is pointed at you and you can't rely on a hidden mistake or anything like that. Like,
it's
there's an element of that also helps.
So I know this is only one. I know this is only one example, but for Verstappen Saudi Arabia 2021 qualifying, that was almost like a shootout because Hamilton set his lap with fastest lap with 2-3 minutes to go, and then Verstappen we saw his whole lap, and then he crashed at the final corner. And I think having that one lap as well for Q3, that risk versus reward is even bigger. And for me, that's having that factor is a really important thing as well in any sport because you need variables, you need factors, and F1 does need that. And I also think for the midfield teams getting into Q3, that's a massive reward because then we get to see the whole lap and the sponsors will be on the car and that kind of thing. Whereas right now we only see the top cars. So I think for the midfield teams, it's a small positive as well.
See, a point I was going to make about that was, if that is the case, I would say do 8 cars or something for a Q3, not do it with 10 cars, because otherwise then that would be too long, really.
Yeah.
And then for a shootout, I feel like there needs to be a sort of real top draw to it. And I appreciate what you're saying about sort of giving the time of day. But I feel like for the most part, that can just lend itself to being like, oh, great, this is wonderful, but it just become a bit tootly. And I think for the most part, I don't know, maybe even a top 6 shootout kind of thing. Even
I think 5, 6, 8, 10 for me doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, fair enough.
8. I mean, right now 8 cars. There are clearly the 4 fastest teams, but I guess 7th and 8th could be a bit different if Stroll or one of the Ferrari drivers doesn't have a good qualifying or whatever. But 8, 10, I'm not too fussed about either. Yeah,
I think it'd be a favoured working difference of a qualifying. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a 20-minute qualifying session rather than a carefully structured 1 hour different session. I wouldn't be surprised if it is just go out and do it now, deal with it, and that kind of thing, or whether they do it with 1 car per team or something like that, just for the sake of being different. And as you say, Adam, there's no harm in what was already there anyway. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they'll end up doing something really convoluted and adding all the qualifying times from Friday and Saturday together. that would be novel. That's never happened before. Going back to 20 years of F1 where that just did happen. But I mean, who knows? Baku, weird track. Always been a bit kind of odd. Always feels like it has so much hype because 2017 was chaotic and 10 laps of 2018 and 2 laps of 2021 were also. So what are your sort of expectations? I've always felt it's a bit kind of quirky and can be some really odd strategies that never seem to quite be given the chance to come to play. Adam, where's your stand on Baku?
Yeah, I feel like it is still in a lot of fans' minds living on the high of its opening, although the first race I believe wasn't very good, but that's 17, 18, 19 were exciting. So I think it's still kind of living off a bit of the high of that, whereas the last 2 races, I mean, yes, there was drama at the end of 2021, but I wouldn't kind of class it, it wasn't for the right reasons in terms of Verstappen, the reason that he the reason that it
cost
was
him the championship. It didn't.
But
cost Leclerc the championship.
So yeah, I think that it's still living off that hype, but equally you go to it knowing that anything can happen, which is still exciting, and I think it does still have that aura. And yeah, as Verstappen found out, even if it wasn't for a driver or anything like that, then it can you can be thrown off in an instant, and there really is pretty much no room for error. So it feels like quite It feels like if there's another bad race or dull race or weekend, then it will start. I think we'll start to see the kind of court of public opinion turn against it a bit. But yeah, it's not a consistent track in terms of the top tier for me, but it is you just always know that anything can happen there, and that is having that excitement or drama all the way to the end is something to be said for it.
Absolutely. Very low tide egg as well, so it's always one pit stop, which isn't great, I guess. And it's going to dry as well. But Adam's right. The risk versus reward that we talked about before, with the wars being close, safety car, high chance of a safety car as well. So then the restarts are very, very fun because that flat out section at the end, that's where the Baku classic moments and races we've had have come from because of those factors and incidents that we've had. So yeah, I think it's one of the best newer. Like I said, new. It's been around since 2016, but the newer tracks compared to the rest of the calendar that have been introduced over the last this century. But I think Red Bull are gonna have the car to beat because they've got the best straight line speed, the efficiency they've got from having a straight line speed, and the downfalls in the corners is just outstanding. And I think that's going to really come into play this weekend for me. So I'd say if it's normal race, it's going to be a battle for second, just like we've had in the first few races. It's just have the rest of the teams close the gap with development, because they have had 4 weeks where the factory hasn't been shut down like it is during the summer break. So they will bring upgrades and that kind of thing. I know some teams are bringing upgrades to Europe instead, but McLaren are going to bring a big package. And I think every team is going to have some kind of new bit on the car as well. So that will make tenths of a difference, and tenths is massive in motorsport.
I mean, crucially though, Red Bull have also had 4 weeks to get there to get the next step ahead.
Yeah, and I think top speeds this weekend are going to be pretty impressive. I do think it's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on the speed traps through 2 qualifying sessions. I think from that side, you're going to have some real high speeds, and if there's an element of slipstreaming going on, then it's going, which there will be, but if there's a significant element of it where you can really see a huge difference, it's going to be pretty impressive to see. I think that's fact that it's going to be impressive where Red Bull will end up with straight line speed, unless there's some wild inconsistency with their performance on this track. And we have seen inconsistencies with the Red Bull. Their tire temperatures, fronts and their front end has been fickle at best. But they have a lot of pace across the rest of the lap to sort of make up for it. But at the end of the day, as much as we're saying Red Bull are going to walk it, I really wouldn't be surprised if they just can't get through turn 1 on one particular lap, because on such a heavy braking that we saw in the sort of hairpin final second to last corner at Australia, Verstappen going off onto the grass, it's not it's an okay corner to come back on the track there. The first corner at Baku, well, pretty much any corner at Baku isn't an okay corner to make a mistake at. Maybe the sort of last real corner, turn 16 or whatever it is, before the wiggly bit of the straight, the main straight. But the rest of them, I feel like, pretty harmful if you have a front lock. So what have we come to if we're sort of talking about maybe Red Bull had a front lock? But the sort of you could sort of point to it as being a bit of a finger behind their back.
Australia, though, when Red Bull were having all kinds of problems on the Friday and Saturday, it was because of the temperature, I thought, because it was super cold and it just didn't get the tyres working. Whereas Azerbaijan should be fine. And I mean, I know the tyres will cool a lot on the long straight, but I just think the track temperature should mean that we shouldn't. Well, certainly for Perez, we shouldn't see a repeat of that. And plus, Perez, I think he alluded that there was an inherent problem anyway. Don't know what it was, but he suggested
4 weeks
that
to fix it.
Issue.
Like you all say, 4 weeks to fix it. So we're saying Red Bull 1-2?
Yes.
For the sprint race or the actual race?
Both.
Yeah.
Third place in the sprint.
I mean, I on the Red Bull, like, it is one like there is just that thing in the back of my mind that like, you know, something can not happen, but like equally it could, you know, just go wrong with any of the other 18 cars on the grid. So I'm not gonna predict it, but I feel like it's not
You've got that feeling.
yeah, I've got that gut instinct. But
sure, it works.
Yeah. You said third place, didn't you, Freddie? Who's going to get
third place for the sprint? Who do you think?
Well, I think Aston Martin, they have the weakest straight line speed out of the top 4 teams. So I don't think they're going to be quite as strong.
Led laps in Saudi.
They did.
But based on that, I'm going Leclerc.
I think the Mercedes, both of the Mercedes
will be third.
One of the Mercedes will be third in the sprint and the main race for me.
Cool. I think Leclerc. To be honest, both. I think Leclerc. I think he's going to be just that. He's always good at this track.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Apart from, I'm stupid.
Apart from when he crashed. Yeah.
His 2021 pole position lap out.
His 2021 pole position, that was something else.
I can see Leclerc for the sprint. I still don't think I'm still not putting my eggs in Ferrari's race pace basket. So I'll go Mr. Third place, Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, it's based on the opening 3. It's
consistent betting on form.
Yeah,
the form card.
I think, to be honest, we're expecting more of the same from Formula One. It's a race where you will be getting the same cars for the most part and the same drivers. So,
and that's when it comes to surprise you. Every time we think it's going to happen, it just suddenly. I remember it happened. It's always happens.
Now you're trying to reverse psychology.
Yeah, you can't deliberately reverse psychologize it.
Malaysia 2015, Austria 2019, 4 years apart as well. 2023, it's going to be Baku 2023.
All right, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Baku 2023 is going to be just the start of a new world order of Formula One.
I'm interested to see the over-under of safety car laps in the F2 races as well, because that's traditionally been a lot.
Formula 2 at Baku, just watch it. Don't hold on to any stakes or emotions with it.
I'm watching the snooker now.
Also watch the snooker. Nigel's going to be there in Sheffield. Or go to Donington Historic Festival, where I will be at Donington, like Lewis Hamilton. Cool people go to Donington. But that's all we've got time for, really. We're going to wrap it up with Donington being the last word. You should all go to Donington. I'm Freddie Donington. He's Adam Donington, and that's Nigel Donington. And we've been the Donington Historic Festival at Donington Park. So thank you very much, and see you next time.
22.